Screen anyway.
We have a packed house today, folks. So just going to let people drift in over the next minute or so, if that's okay. And we'll kick off in about 30 seconds. Lift off, perhaps, more appropriate. Thanks, Will.
Okay, I think I'm ready.
Excellent. Okay, folks, we might kick off. So hello, everyone, and welcome to probably one of the most anticipated ERF briefings of the year, a morning with Jessica Kilkenny Roddy on all things Chat GPT, AI, and recruitment. So if you're anything like me, Ed Heffernan, you'll be intrigued and nervous in equal measure as to how this rapidly changing space will impact and hopefully enhance how we practice our profession. So welcome. And of course, we would not be here today if we're not for the kind support of Jimmy Sheehan and his team in Contracting Plus. It's Jimmy and his team that make these briefings possible. And it's their generous sponsorship that make these events free for ERF members. So thank you, guys. As many of you know, Contracting Plus are key partners for lots of our members who are involved in contract recruitment. And their team help recruiters get contracting professionals set up and into their chosen company with the insurances and the supports that they need. They can sign contracts and be ready to go on site the exact same day. So seamless. So if you're in contract recruitment, give Jen or Jimmy a shout, and they'll be more delighted to help you out. So guys, today we're joined by Jess for a session entitled Chat GPT, AI, and the Recruiter. And over the next 30 minutes or so, Jessica will share with us how AI tools can help professional recruiters create engaging content faster. And she's going to share some of the interesting plugins that use GPT-3 that are already in play out there, such as UseBERT, which is an AI-powered copy generation tool that's supercharging content creation. So Jess is going to have a lot to cover, everything from constructing a powerful personal brand on social channels, to generating interesting articles and blogs that Google will love, to maximizing your marketing capabilities, as well as a quick tour of UseBERT as an example of how to get the most out of AI platforms. So as usual, folks, we're going to take questions to the chat function at the bottom and try to hit as many of them as we can at the time we have for Q&A at the end of the session. We have a hard stop for 9:45 today. So welcome, Jessica. Super to have you with us. And I guess over to you.
Thank you so much. I am so nervous, but hopefully this will all go well and everything will work. If tech works, it's great. When it doesn't, it's less so. So hopefully you can see that, can you?
Yep, looks good.
Cool, amazing. So yeah, thank you so much for the kind introduction. I'm going to take a little bit of a step back before I take you forward. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction into GPT, as you say, the technology itself, because we've heard so many buzzwords about it. Touch on AI a little bit, because it obviously sits within the same vein, and then talk about UseBERT, which is a platform that we've recently launched. Just to start a little bit about me, I was super conscious this morning when I was practicing that I didn't give any sort of background about who I am and what I do, and therefore why I'm in any way qualified to be here talking to you guys this morning. So a bit about me. I spent about 6 years in recruitment, both in Ireland and in the UK. I then went into recruitment technology. So I worked in recruitment technology for about 5 years, and then also worked with recruitment businesses launching new service lines into new markets. Then I came in to launch UseBERT in January of this year. So I've been in and around the recruitment market now for over 10 years, on both the recruiter side and on the technology side. So that hopefully puts me in a little bit of a good stead to have a bit of a better understanding about this and be able to impart a bit of knowledge, all going well. So I want to start with talking about what is GPT technology. So for many of you, including myself about 9 months ago, I thought this technology worked by going off and reading the internet, finding the answer to the question that you're asking, and then repurposing what it found and giving you back an answer. That isn't how it works. So GPT technology doesn't read the internet as much as that's what we think it does. So GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. And I want to give you a little bit of context in terms of what that is and how it works, because it helps shape how you can then use it in your business. Without understanding how it works properly, it's hard to imagine where it can actually sit within your business unit. First of all, to note, GPT has been around for a long time now. So it's been around since 2018, but we're only really hearing about it at this stage is because it's improved and it's got so much better. When the first version was released, which is GPT-1, it was only educated, and I say educated very lightly, it was only trained on about 7,000 data points on different unpublished books. So it really wasn't very good, and that's why we didn't hear that much about it. We've obviously gone through a few different iterations into GPT-2 and onto GPT-3 and even GPT 3.5, which a lot of people haven't heard of, but if you are a developer, you have heard of it. It's what UseVerse is built in, and it's a slightly improved version of GPT-3. And now we're moving into GPT-4. So what all of these different things are basically taking massive data sets and different data points and educating the platform on that. GPT then takes these data points and uses these as references to answer the questions that somebody is asking. And it does that through predictive language-based models. So what that essentially means is it doesn't understand what it's reading. It doesn't understand these data points. It doesn't understand what it's being fed. But what it can do is start to find patterns and predicting what is the next likely thing in that sequence. So the easiest way to explain it, or the way that it at least sticks in my head, is to kind of go back to almost an old-fashioned school way of thinking of it. So you used to see all these sequences when you were in maths class, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What's the likely next number to happen? In this case, it would be 12, because we know things are, increasing by 2. This is very linear. You've got starting point and end point, and it's quite obvious what the next one in the sequence is going to be. When we take that same principle and apply it to language models, we get things like this. So the dog barked at, the cat, the postman, or the girl. These are all quite likely and probable words to come after that sequence, but any of those fit in that. This is obviously being based on a really, really simplistic way of looking at it. When we kind of note the trillions upon trillions of data points that GPT has been trained on, there's so many different formulas that can be put in here and so many different predicting words that can come after that sequence. So this is how it works in a really straightforward way, but when you extrapolate that out across billions and billions of different data points, that's where it really starts to have power. The way that it actually gives you those bits of information and these sequences is through the prompts that you're provided. So whether it be Chat GPT that you're using or a platform like UseVerse, you'll have to put in a certain amount of prompts into the platform to be able to guide it down the path that you want to. So when you open end questions into Chat GPT, that's when it can sometimes fall over, or it can go too broad because you've not kind of given it enough prompts for it to know exactly what you're looking for. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense.
It's great to see it broken down so simply, Jess, because you can read as many articles as you want and you might come away confused.
Totally over your head, like the same as mine. And I also think it's really important to note, like, nobody's an expert in this yet, unless you work for OpenAI and you're part of the development team. Nobody really is an expert in this. We're all learning. We're all still figuring out, its strengths and its weaknesses. So yeah, I think it's really, really important to kind of demystify that a little bit and try and get it back to just everyday talk and language, because once you understand something, it makes it so much easier to talk about. But again, if we don't break down that barrier to entry to understanding it, we're never going to be able to utilize it to the best of our ability. So what's the difference? I'm conscious that Chat GPT is kind of the one that's the front runner at the moment, which is amazing, but there are other platforms coming up. Obviously, I'm going to plug UseVerse because that's what I do, but there's loads of different platforms now that are cropping up that are using this technology. So what is the difference between them all? So Chat GPT is a chatbot, and it's built using GPT technology to answer questions to the masses. And what I mean by that is you've got people that are asking it to plan, a 2-week itinerary trip to Rome for them, or, tell me recommendations of restaurants in a local area. It's a very linear exchange from I'll ask a question and ChatGPT will do its absolute best to give you a succinct answer back, answering exactly the questions that you've asked. So it's again, A to B, kind of a linear format. When we look at platforms like UseBert also uses GPT technology, but we use it more for content curation. So what we've done is we've taken that technology, put in some prompts in the back end that allow you not to just answer a question, but to actually let it think, and I use think very, very loosely, for itself to be able to build out from those prompts to create long form content. Because ChatGPT is answering a question, it's trying to get to the end result as quick as possible, whereas we've created UseBert to be able to create kind of thought leadership and opinions falsified, again, because it's not real, it doesn't really understand what it's saying, it's just looking at predictive models, but that it can expand on that. So in a really easy way to think about it, you've got OpenAI, which has built GPT technology, and that's the powerhouse that powers all of these platforms. You put in some chatbot prompts, and that equals ChatGPT. If you take the same technology, you put in your content writer prompts, and you get UseBert. So they're all coming from the same place, you're just twisting the technology to do slightly different things. And we see that happening a lot now, where different platforms are building a whole host of different things that you can do using AI technology, but it's all kind of rooted in that original GPT. If that would make sense.
Makes sense.
This is a be careful word of warning. I think it's maybe the Irish in me that's still a little bit of a cynic. I can say that talking to a group of predominantly, I would imagine, Irish people. It sounds really scary. I don't mean it in a scary way, but I do think that we need to be conscious not to kind of lose the run of ourselves yet. So automation is not the same as AI. So I've seen it time and time again where a rec tech tool, a CRM tool will have powered by AI, powered by, machine learning. 9 times out of 10, it's not. What it's powered by is automated workflows, which are great and fantastic and absolutely serve a purpose. But sometimes we've got into this habit of jumping from zero to AI, and actually we've missed all those middle bits in our processes, and that's where things can fall down. So don't get confused and don't be swept up in this idea that everything has to have AI in it for it to work efficiently into the top of its game now. That's not the case. So yeah, the buzzword doesn't mean that you have to have it in it. You don't need to have an AI-driven CRM currently. And if you do want to have one, think about, well, what do I want it to do? And does it do that? Don't just get swept up on the idea that, well, it's got AI, so therefore I should have it. The same applies for loads of different things, interview schedulers, screening tools. They're not quite there yet. So don't worry about trying to get them into your business today. GPT specifically, if we look at that as a technology, it's very, very good at writing things in a really convincing way. That's the whole purpose of it. That's why it's built the way it is. And it's how it writes those models. Again, if we think back to how it predicts the likelihood of the next word, sometimes you can think, oh, I've seen that before. That sounds familiar, and therefore that must be right. Its whole foundation level is to write in a way that sounds familiar because it's based on predictions and probability of the next sequence of words. So 9 times out of 10, it can be right. I can get the right information, but just always err on the side of caution. I've seen people kind of saying, oh, I'm going to write advisory pieces or advisory blogs. Just be careful that you always sense gauge what you're putting out there, because it doesn't know for fact. It's only it doesn't understand what it's writing. It's just working on these predictive language models. All of the data points are limited. So every platform that uses GPT technology, whether it be on 3 or 3.5, the latest data points that it's been educated on is October 2021. So everything pre-October 2021, it can get factually right. Anything post-October 2021, it isn't always right. So again, just be careful. I'm not saying don't use them. Obviously, I run a business that does have this, but just always make sure that you're comfortable with what it's writing, because again, it doesn't understand it in the same way that we understand language. And then finally, these are all tools. So don't worry about, something coming in and changing your way of working tomorrow, or that it's going to totally revolutionize everything, next week. They're just tools at this present day. it's not yet at a stage, and I've worked for a voice engagement platform before, where we were probably one of the closest to getting to the point of being able to call a candidate and have a conversation with them. We're not there yet. That's not possible. So that role of the recruiter, of engaging with people and making those connections, that hasn't been replaced yet, and I don't see that being replaced for a long while yet. What we can do is we can automate and use AI to take some of the more heavy lifting stuff off your desk, like content creation, like thought leadership pieces, like your LinkedIn statuses. We don't necessarily need to have you doing them all day, every day. Actually, let's focus on talking to candidates, talking to clients, and have some AI tools doing some of that grunt work, if you like. Which is a nice little segue for me to move on to talking about USBART, if that's okay. So I'm going to close this screen real quick and then jump onto this one. So, like I say, what USBART is a content creator, and we've built something that allows you to take a lot of the heavy lifting and the admin work off creating content. It was born out of a frustration felt by myself. I was working for a big recruitment company in a sales function, and being targeted with inbound sales and traffic to websites and all of these things. But when you're trying to hit a financial target and manage a team and do all the other things that you're trying to do, actually sitting down and researching something to write is really time consuming. And that's when we started playing around with GPT technology and built USBART, because that's where it came from. So what I really want to show you is just a couple of little features on it that will hopefully make your life easier. So I'm going to go through the quick blog builder. I'm then going to do the rewrite my content section, and then finally just the inspired by others. So the quick blog builder is an easy one to kind of explain. So this is when my hands stop working when I'm typing on a presentation and get nervous. So I went to look for a new role, something that we all want to entice people out of jobs so that we can place them somewhere else, but we can also replace them where they were. So if we just want to take this as a broad open topic, the content purpose is the most important part in any of these features that you use. Reason being is Google ranks things higher that have a thought process of who the reader is at the end. So what I mean by that is, if you're just writing stuff that you don't have a purpose behind and it's just pushing content to try and get keywords up, Google actually ranks that down. What it wants to see is, are you answering the questions that people are asking? If someone's searching Google for how do I find a new role, are you answering those questions? So the content purpose is just put something really, really broad again. So it's to educate people on when to search for a new role. I should probably put that in, search new role, and to contact me to find out about open opportunities. Your article tone is just the tone that you want it to be written in. We're going to go with educational. We have got a few options dropped down, but you can pick and choose whichever ones you want. Again, I always say put no more than 3 and try and keep them within the same vein. So I sometimes see people putting, I don't know, witty and professional. They're just on opposite spectrums of a tone. So try and keep them within the same bracket. And then your keywords. So again, if you do a little bit of work behind what do you want to rank for on Google, what keywords are people looking for? And if anyone wants help with that, let me know. I can send you through some cool tools to find out stuff like that. This is where you want to get those keywords in, because you're basically telling BERT, make sure you try and include these things. So if I do new role, recruitment agent, recruitment in Dublin. So it says keywords, they can be individual words, they can be short phrases. And then we're going to go. So let's go. Down the bottom, sorry, I forgot to tell you. So you've got different lengths of articles. So you've got your short articles, your medium articles, and your long articles. So short is around 500 words. Your medium is about 700 to 1,000, and then your long articles are 1,000 plus. What's happening now in the background is BERT is taking all of these prompts that we've just put in, it's building them out, and it's starting to write that long piece of content. What we then also do is we then take that finalized article and blog piece, we feed it back through BERT, and we say, read that again and make sure that that's all right and correct. Because if you think about how it works and it's predicting the next word in a sequence, what can happen is that paragraph 1 and paragraph 5 are the same because it's talked itself around in a circle. So what we do then is we take that, we re-put it back through to basically say, make sure that that hasn't happened, go back and edit it, essentially, go back and reread it. So what you're now getting is a fully formed blog and an article on the side. What we do say is this should get you 95% of the way there. I am not one of these people that think it's going to totally change everything and just copy and paste that and post it on your website. I wouldn't recommend doing that. But what it does do is it does all of the research for you, all of the heavy lifting. So I can now take that, reread it, put in my Jessisms of ways that I would work and put in my few phrases or specifics about my business that I want to have in, and then post it. So now we've gone from taking 2-3 hours to write a piece of content to what, 20 minutes maybe max, even a little bit less. So that's how the blog function works. What I want to show you on the rewrite my content one is a little blue Peter. Here's one I prepared earlier. Let me see if I can get this. So this is just a quick headhunt email. So I'm going to paste that email in there just so everyone can see. The classic, I hope you're keeping well. I'd love to talk to you about a job. Because again, what we often struggle with as recruiters is we're having the same conversation over and over and over again. It can get hard to get imaginative with it or to really kind of start to put an oomph into them anymore. So I'm going to click email. So like you can say, you can rewrite LinkedIn posts, you can rewrite blog posts, you can rewrite emails, whatever you want to. This section is very much so focused on something that you already own. So if you're doing something like a blog post, for example, we've seen people that have blog sites on their website or blog sections on their website that haven't been touched in months and months and months. Google downranks those. So if you don't have it being updated constantly, Google starts to see it as old content and pushes it further down the feed. Easy way to updo that is take that blog post, dump it in here, ask it to refresh it, and then you've got a whole new blog, but it's based on the parameters that you've got here. I'm conscious that I'm talking a lot, but I want to really kind of make this clear. What makes this section different is it is not using external data points all the time. It's using the content that you've given it as reference points. So it's almost being educated in real time. Again, educated in real time, but it's using these as the data points. So how should Bert improve it? Make it more engaging, make it shorter, make it more interesting, talk more about the role. You can literally tell it to do whatever you want. And again, let's go. So what's happening now is it's taking those prompts and it's building out further on them. And over now, sorry, Ed, your head's right in the way of my email. There. No, not your actual head where you're floating. So now what you can see is it's just built that out a bit further. So what we've done is we've taken something that is really literally a skeleton version of an email. And again, I've kept these really broad because I want to make sure it appeals to as many as possible. And it's been able to kind of create something from that. So we see a lot of people using that with headhunt emails, with business development emails, and again, refreshing blog posts, or where I use it a lot, honestly, is I personally really like to write my own LinkedIn posts. But I don't always have the best English or the best grammar or the best phrasing, or something I'll write in 4 sentences could have been 1. And what I'll do is I'll give it to Bert in here in a LinkedIn post and it will just rewrite it for me. It's almost like having a second eye on it and a second approval. And then finally, what I want to show you, because I'm conscious of time, is the inspired by other section. So as I say, all GPT technology is blocked after 2021, October 2021. It doesn't know things that have happened after that point. So what I want to do is give people still the ability to write about things that are happening in real time, because I know newspaper articles, regulatory bodies are putting out pieces of information, and a lot of that is what's building your social channels and building that information. So what we do here is I've got this article on Sky News this morning about the fraud of money embezzlement during the pandemic. Not new news, but here we go. So I'm going to take this whole article and just copy the whole article, everything included. I'm just going to dump the whole lot. Oh, sorry. Got to copy it. Oh. Copy that. And then I'm going to dump the whole lot in here. As you can see, it's taken ads and everything. Just dump the whole lot in. And then I'm actually going to take a blog post from this. So, or actually, let's do a LinkedIn post because we haven't done a LinkedIn post yet. So we'll ask it to take this and then create me a LinkedIn post off the back of it. So the content purpose is to encourage discussion. So we want to take this thing and we want to try and encourage discussion off the back of it. Let's go with casual because it's quite a serious topic. So we don't want it to go too extreme, but let's keep it professional. And then off we go. So what it's now doing, again, instead of using all the data points that it has in its education, what it's doing is it's taking these as a real-time data point and then building on the back of it. So as you can see, it's created a LinkedIn post. So you can now take that, and even you can go as far as to say, encourage discussion, include emojis. Let's go again. The way that it works is every time you'll click redo, it may kick back something similar, but again, because it's built on predictive models, it will slightly change it because every time it does it, it's a new one. So take, for example, we've done that one, and actually we like parts of that. You can see it's put in your hashtags and everything for you. But if you wanted your old one, simply click on history and it's there for you as well. So hopefully that all makes a bit of sense. I'm going to jump really quickly just onto a final slide here. So my real kind of takeaway points for this, what did Google like? And I think that is really, really important to note. I worked for a brief period of time as a marketing consultant. That's another story, but I did do a lot of research into, you know, how Google works, how it ranks things, SEO rankings, because selfishly as a salesperson, that's what I want to know, how I get on the top of it. And these are the things that Google like. So people do get a little bit worried about Google downgrades AI written content. It doesn't. Google have come out publicly and said that they don't. What they do downgrade is poorly written content. So historically, they would have downgraded AI written content because, as we saw before, it wasn't very good and the data points it was educated on were so old. So it did previously downgrade them. It doesn't anymore because it can't tell the difference between one AI written piece of content and one badly written content by a copywriter. It just doesn't like bad content. So to get good content is like using platforms like UseBert that are built specifically for content curation. So you don't get those kind of loopholes and circles and what they call AI hallucinations, where it talks itself around in the circles. So answer a question that people are asking. Again, I can send through some platforms where you can do a bit of research on that, but make sure that you're answering something that people are genuinely Google searching for. Be purpose-led in what you're doing, making sure that you know the reason behind that piece of content that you're producing. Think about who your audience is. Is it candidates? Is it clients? What are they going to learn from it? What are they trying to get out with it? And also use keywords, but don't overuse them. Google does downgrade the use of just trying to beat the system, beat the hack of trying to rank by including loads and loads and loads of keywords. It actually then starts to go against you. So make sure you've got them, but they have to be done in a cohesive way and one that makes sense. And that's it. That's me. I think that is just about time, leaving 15 minutes for questions. So I'll close this, but hopefully.
Super, Jess. Come here. That to be fair, that was fascinating, and it just makes things much clearer. It's almost like clearing a fog. And I can understand now how UseBert and other tools kind of, I guess, just facilitate a different interaction with OpenGPT, right? Yeah. And also give you an interface that it suits the purpose of what you want to actually do. Is that fair enough?
Totally, yeah. So when you use a more generalized product like Chat GPT, because it's trying to fit so many different things for so many different people, don't get me wrong, I'm like, you know, hands up, you could get Chat GPT to write you something, but you'll have to guide it so far down and give it so many different prompts to be able to do that, because you're almost like, don't answer the question, actually go off and write this, but not like that, and then come back like this, and you just want to twist it. So the way that loads of these platforms are now coming about is going back to the root technology, GPT. Now that the APIs are available, we know more about them, we can actually build on them, and then from that base layer, start to carve out the prompts and what you want it to do.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think your opening slide said prompt accuracy is VIP in all of this. So it's basically curating those
Exactly. So we've done all of that. We've done all of that for you in the background. And I think it's really, really important to note as well, because I've worked in the reg tech space, you know, you can go on and start using UseBert for free on the website. You click sign in, your first 1,000 words are free, off you go, give it a whirl. And after that, if you do want to sign up, it's only £8 a month and you cancel any time that you want. I think it's really important to make this really accessible for everybody. The minute you start putting barriers of costs and long contracts, and it's so overwhelming, we're just not going to get the adoption rate that I think is fair for everybody, because everyone should be using these tools. They should be accessible for everybody. And we've got a lot of people that, you know, struggle with dyslexia that use it, people that struggle just with language as English as their first language using it. So we want to make sure that everyone can have access to it. So I encourage everybody, if nothing else, go on and sign up for the free trial and give it a whirl. And if it works after that, amazing. If not, that's okay too, you know?
And do you mind me asking, there's a couple of questions coming in here, so we might dive into them in just a quick sec, but like, where does this all end, I guess? So where will people be competitive in producing better content than others? Or do you get me? Because there is a kind of, there's a potential breakdown in the system, if you get me. With like, so could you unpack that a little bit, perhaps?
And look, a lot of this will be my personal opinion rather than you know what is going to happen.
Jess, you'll have an informed opinion rather than say me.
So I don't know. See, I'm very GPT. I'm very good at convincing you that
I gave you an okay prompt as well. So
exactly.
Let's rock and roll on that.
No, I think from my perspective, it doesn't really change how I would have produced content in the first instance, honestly. I think content and even being out on social channels, yes, it's about frequency, but it's not about white noise. It's not about posting things for the sake of it. If every day you're writing 3, 4, 5 LinkedIn statuses, and every week you're producing 2 or 3 blog content pieces just because you can, you're just going to lose people into that white noise. I think where this is really powerful, genuinely, is to use it as that tool and that support. So you decide, actually, I'm going to write out my marketing plan for the next month, and I want to produce 2 really good, well-informed articles, but I'm also going to dedicate a little bit of time for that. So I'm going to use BERT to write the foundation, to get it to a point that, you know, it could be published, but actually then I'm going to take an hour to read it, to add in bits, to go and research tiny bits of it, to get those reference points and put those in. That kind of extra 5% that people do on top, they're the people that win out. When you use things like this as that tool, as that support system, it's almost like saying, you know, why I'm going to stay using Excel spreadsheets rather than a CRM. Why would you do that? That just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Putting a CRM in doesn't mean that, oh, now you've won the game because you've got a CRM. You know, it's about kind of saying, right, that is a tool that helps me improve what I do. It speeds up my processes. It keeps things organized. But actually, it's that extra mile that I go on top. And the same applies with content. You know, I think it is still thinking about, what questions do I want to answer? Where do I want to be known? How do I want to be known as a thought leader? Yes, I can use these things to help build that for me, but I still need to do that little bit on top. And they're the people that win out. I've actually got somebody on the call here, and I won't embarrass by saying their name, but they've used BERT now since it launched in mid-January, and he's built his personal brand, you know, astronomically, that's not the right word, astronomically. And you know, he's had a post that went viral, you know, you're talking in the thousands of likes and hundreds of thousands of views, but he did that by taking what UseBert wrote and then just putting his own little flair on it. But the content that UseBert wrote was really strong and really solid. You just needed to put that little bit on top, that little flavor that makes it kind of become really personable.
Gotcha. And just out of interest, so if I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate here a little bit, if that's okay, but if I identify 2 or 3 people in the recruitment world who actually do what you described there, and I have an alert, and that alert says Bob just issued a piece of content. I could just take that, put it into UseBert, say rewrite this and repost it in like 5 seconds. So there is a lazy. Is there any defense to that type or use of the system?
There's not really, but you know, it's already happening. It's just happening at a slower pace. So and this is really, really controversial, so I'm super conscious saying it, but nobody's thought is an original thought. Like, we're all inspired by the world around us. We're all inspired by what we see, what we read, you know, taking Bob's piece of content, I'll read that and go, God, that was interesting. He's done really well. I'm going to write something on the back of that. That's how we create content today. So actually, it's already happening. This is just going to speed up the process for it, which is scary. And that does change how we work. But people are already doing it. So anyway, you almost have to get on board with it. But again, you're not going to do as well as Bob if you don't have the following that Bob has, and you don't put your little je ne sais quoi on top of it and actually reference a few other things and build on that and build it further. I think where content performs really, really well is taking what somebody's done that's performed well, but taking it to the next stage, that next level. And that's when you're really going to start to build momentum with it. And
you can almost think of it as resharing. You know, are there copyright issues if someone has a piece of content that they have copyrighted?
So no. So the way that the platform works, again, because it's built on predictive language models, it will never be the same. There's always an element of randomness to it. So it will always be an original piece of content. The only one that isn't the original piece of content in UseBert in particular is the rewrite my content, because you're basically you're saying to UseBert, I own this content, so don't worry about changing it too much or building it from scratch. I just want you to improve it. I just want you to refresh it. I just want you to rephrase it. So that you have to own the content for the rewrite my content section. Everything else, because it feeds it into these predictive language models, it works in the background. But that's the only feature when you use the platform that's got a big warning to say you have to own your original content to use this section.
Gotcha. That answers a question by Alan Blewett there, who's a tenured recruiter and TikTok personality, who's wondering if you put the same inputs in at the same time, would you get the same results in from two separate sources? No, it's always unique.
Exactly. It's always unique. And again, that's why, and I'm conscious that I do sound like a bit of a parrot, but it's kind of understand how those language models work that then kind of give you the confidence. It can't ever be the same because you've got trillions upon trillions of data points that it's pulling on. So by the nature of it, there is an element of randomness. Even if you put the exact same prompts in at the exact same time in the exact same way, they won't produce the exact same pieces of content.
Okay, interesting. It's fascinating, Jess. We have about 7 minutes left, so we're going to power through some questions. It'll be like mastermind, okay? So Paula Feeney asked, does it take into account LinkedIn's algorithms, etc.? You know, the correct number of hashtags, recommended numbers of words, or how does that work?
Yeah, so LinkedIn, the absolute black box that is LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's algorithm changes so consistently.
Moment to moment,
yeah, literally. It does have some parameters. So the way that we've built UseBert is that it's got controls in place by way of keep it within a certain word count limit, make sure to include a certain amount of hashtags if applicable, because not every status is hashtag applicable. And so we do have controls in place that try to mirror what LinkedIn likes, but equally, you know, I confidently wouldn't even say if I wrote something original totally myself, would it be perfect to LinkedIn's algorithm, because it just changes so much so fast. But yes, there are controls in place. We are, and I'm always conscious not to say, oh, in the future we're going to, but what we are looking at now is taking LinkedIn statuses that have performed really, really well and educating BERT on those to basically say, try and follow this format.
Okay, very good,
so
very
again,
good.
We'll
but
take
that's a work in progress.
Exactly, it will go a step further. But today, as it stands, yes, it's got controls, yes, it's got parameters, but take it with a pinch of salt, because as I say, even building totally original content, you know, one person knows how LinkedIn algorithm works, somebody else thinks they do, and they've got a slightly different stand on it. I'd just be conscious. What I will say about LinkedIn, and Paula wants to drop me a message, I do have some like do's and don'ts on LinkedIn statuses. If she wants to drop me a message, I can go through those.
Okay, super. And this is kind of slightly connected from Jen Redman. Does UseBert start to learn your particular tone and way of writing? And that could be an important piece, because, you know, we as organizations have a way of speaking and engaging and interacting, and that is a unique facet of our personality that can be copied but replicated. So is that there in the background in OpenGPT and then through to UseBert? How does it work?
Yeah, so yes, in theory, again, if we think about how it works, in theory, it can be educated on your tone of voice. Today, to be able to do that, you would have to feed GPT technology and UseBert enough data points about content and how you write and your emails and everything that it then becomes educated on that. Okay, so you would almost have to give it your profile to be able to say, this is all of how I write, what performs well for me. Now go and be educated on that. In theory, it can be done. We can do it. We're looking at doing something a little bit less invasive to be able to do that. The best way to do it is to come up with the tones that it works with. And when it does rewrite my content, it will stick to the tone of voice that you've already created in it. So yes and no, it does have potential to do that. And you would need so many data points on you as an individual to know how to do it. With UseBert, we have kind of said you're a recruiter, you're an internal recruiter, you're a marketing person, and you can kind of create those personas behind it. But we haven't taken it to the next stage yet, because you would have to collect so many data points on an individual style of writing to be able to do that. And I think people, correct me if I'm wrong, it does start to become a little bit invasive to be able to do that.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess UseBert is a really good example of how it's being used to power content, in its various forms. What other tools are you aware of that are out there that are of value, I guess, to recruitment firms? This is a question from Nicola Potter.
Yeah. Do you know what? And this is not a scapegoat answer, and I'm conscious that it really does sound like it. I was doing so much research this week to try and find other genuine AI tools within the recruitment space that exist. I haven't found any that for an agency recruiter I think would be that powerful, and maybe I've missed them, so like feel free to correct me if I have. Where I have found AI tools that do work really well are in things like psychometric testing, because again, this type of AI in particular works on predictions, and what AI in general is really good at is predicting. So that's why Google is really good at finding your answers, because it's predicting if 100 people search this and half of them clicked on this link, it's probably that link they're looking for. Or when Netflix go, well, you like that show and that show, you're probably going to like this show because based on all the data points we've got from other people. So when you think about that and how AI and machine learning works, it works really well on things that are predicting. So like that psychometric test, there's some fantastic AI products out there at the moment that work really well in psychometric testing, because they'll say, you've got that background, so I predict, looking at what other people have had with that background, you'd work well in these types of jobs, or this is the type of support that you'd need. And also with things like internal employee engagement. So there's a few tools out there now that are really fantastic for an internal team, where you're looking at, well, this person, isn't engaged, or they don't log in until 5 past the hour every morning. Looking on the data points that we've got on other people, that might mean that they're disengaging slightly from their role. So again, it's working on predictive models, and that's what makes AI so powerful. We're not yet at a stage where, again, it can pick up a phone and talk to a candidate and kind of decide how to screen it. It can also do things like, match CVs to job specs. We all know, as the role of a recruiter, like a CV and a job spec, they don't have to always necessarily be right. So again, there are tools out there. I personally wouldn't recommend that many. That's why UseBert even isn't a recruitment tool. It helps recruiters, but with content, because that's what it's good at now. It's not yet at the stage where it's doing recruitment pieces really well, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense.
That sounds like a real cop-out answer.
No, but it does, because it's rapidly evolving, and this is just a really good practical use, and there's a lot of contextual things to what we do as a profession that maybe others don't appreciate, but we can appreciate.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we need to not lose sight of that. I think we sometimes become obsessed with the idea of like, what else can I automate, or what else can I use AI for? As a recruiter, talking to your clients and your candidates are the most important part. It's the only part of our job, really. Everything else is the outside bit. So when it comes to, automating your CRM, or having email automations, or, writing content for you, get that stuff off your desk, so you can focus on these other bits, because that's the other bit that hasn't yet been touched by AI in a really convincing way.
And Jess, we work in a human-to-human business, so it's the hardest one to
people buy from people.
Exactly. Guys, we've got loads of other questions here, and Jess, I might beg your help maybe to if we share them with you separately, because we're going to be out of time. If you're able to give a comment or one or two, and we can distribute within the membership, because there's some really good ones about plugging into Chrome and GDPR and CVs and this type of stuff. So they're kind of, it's what's on the membership's mind. So look, that's been fantastic. It's been a real education for me, and I'm sure for everyone who attended. So well done, and thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, and hopefully we might see you at TalentCon in a couple of weeks if we're lucky, Jess, right?
Yeah.
It's our biggest event, so listen, hopefully you might be able to make it over, and we'll catch up then for a coffee, all right?
Yeah, definitely. And thank you so much, everyone. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn if there's any questions, if I can help with anything.
Super. Cheers, Jess.
Thanks so much.
Guys, just to close out, look, thanks again to Jess. That was fantastic. Thanks to the team at Contracting Plus. And guys, just a reminder, if you're working with contractors, make sure you're chatting to Jimmy and his team, who are the partners with so many of us here in terms of umbrellas, companies and limited companies. So that's a wrap, folks. Hope you found our time together helpful, informative, and occasionally entertaining. And that it opened up your mind just a little bit to all the possibilities that AI will open up for us all over the coming months and years ahead. I wrote this ahead of today, so it's not AI really, it's more automation and predictive generative text. Okay, so I've been Ed Heffernan, our presenter. Our presenter has been Jessica Kilkenny Roddy. Our partners have been Jimmy and his team in Contracting Plus. Thank you, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.